I got to kick this thing off. Can I kick it off? 1, 2, 3, 4. Ladies and gentlemen, listen.
What's good, everybody? You are now listening to another episode of the Man Listen Show. But before we get started, let's hear a few words from our sponsors.
DD's Daiquiris is your #1 supplier of premium daiquiri mixes. You will love the taste of our classic margarita and signature strawberry mixes. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at DD's Daiquiris. DD is spelled DEEDEE. You can also find us at www.dd'sdaiquiris.com. DD's Daiquiris, giving good vibes to good people, one good drink at a time.
Are you looking for a virtual assistant who can help you with your scheduling, travel, research, and expenses? Demi Virtual Solutions is the answer for you. Demi Virtual Solutions also provides mobile notary services. They will travel to take care of your needs. So if you are in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and need a virtual assistant or are looking for mobile notary services, contact them at 469-522-9005, and you can find them on their website at demivirtualsolutions.com. That's DEMI virtualsolutions.com. Are you in the state of Texas and looking for a knowledgeable loan advisor that will walk you through the process from application to closing? Well, then you need to contact Joe Byers at Trinity Oaks Mortgage. Trinity Oaks Mortgage offers FHA, VA, and conventional loans. They also have a first-time homebuyers program available. There is also down payment assistance available as well. Make sure you contact Joe Byers at Trinity Oaks Mortgage. You can reach Joe at 972-512-8990.
More Grace Counseling and Mediation Services offers individual and relationship counseling as well as mediation services to the community. At More Grace, healthy partnerships are valuable and beneficial. Please visit the website www.moregracecounseling.com for more information about our approach to counseling. More Grace Counseling and Mediation Services, where we offer more grace and more healing.
Please buy the new book by Arika Nicole Moore, Diabolical Tales of Woe. Diabolical Tales of Woe is a thrilling collection of short horror stories that leave you in an excited trepidation to see what will happen next. Prepare to face one horrific encounter after the next in this captivating novel. You can find this book on Amazon in the Kindle and paperback version. That is Diabolical Tales of Woe by Arika Nicole Moore. Conversate with Us Radio presents the Man Listen Show. We are the blackest radio show on the internet. We bring you our opinion on topics that affect the Black community in an effort to enlighten, enrich, and empower every brother and sister that falls under the sound of our voice. We operate on a no-hating frequency, so be prepared for us to keep it 100% real and 100% Black all the time. Please follow the show on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Man Listen Show. And you can also find the show on YouTube, iTunes, basically anywhere you can find your podcasts. Please share the show and use the hashtag ManListen. I'm your host, Marv B. On today's show, we're going to talk about COVID-19. President Biden has made a commitment to put 100 million vaccines in the next 100 days into the arms of American citizens. And in the Black community, there is a lot of doubt, a lot of fear, a lot of skepticism about the vaccine. In order to enlighten and enrich and empower our listening audience, we wanted to bring an expert in, and we have today Dr. Gwendolyn Oglesby-Odom, Vice President and Chief Nursing Officer of Advocate Trinity Hospital. Dr. Odom, how are you today?
I'm well. How are you, Marvin?
I'm doing good. So thank you for coming on the show. We have the Man Listen crew. We're on both spectrums. We have some of us who can't wait to get the vaccine, and some of us who are like, nah, I'm not getting it. And some are like, I'm going to get it, but I'm going to wait a little while before I get it just to see how it goes. Right. There's just a lot of questions. So we wanted to have you on the show to talk about that. So the first question I have is, many people don't understand how was this vaccine created so fast, because when the pandemic first started, we looked at past pandemics and they said, it takes 7 to 10 years to craft a vaccine. And here we are, less than a year out from when things started, and there are two vaccines out that they are given to the public. So a lot of people are questioning how are they able to do it so fast when, before we were told it would take years to make a vaccine. So can you talk about that?
Yeah, let's take a step back a little bit and educate the public on the fact that coronavirus is not anything that's new. Did you know that? Did you know that coronavirus existed before we actually had this pandemic?
I knew that the coronavirus did, because we had SARS and what was that thing?
And
But,
MERS.
yeah,
right?
MERS, yeah, we had those things. But
Yeah.
could you see it on the Lysol bottle? You see it's
Right.
for coronavirus, but this is a
Right.
different variant.
It's a different variant. And so really all that they had to do, so back when Ebola happened and they didn't have a vaccine and 11,000 people died, they wanted to create technology in order to move to create vaccine faster. Technology has advanced us a lot. Like we have microwaves now. We didn't used to have microwaves. It used to take 30 minutes to heat up your food. Now it takes 10 seconds. So technology has advanced, and so has it advanced when we try to create vaccines. And so they had like a plug and play type of technology that they were able to use because they had coronavirus before. Once the Chinese released the biological makeup, the DNA of the virus, they were able to rapidly get in the lab and create that virus because they had that plug and play technology that they had created out of the coronavirus with the MERS and the SARS. And so there was already a template
Okay.
created. So they just had to plug it in so that they can understand how the biology of coronavirus worked. And the key, which they call, what do you call it? Let me look. I can't remember right now because the spike that's on the virus that unlocks our body cells to allow the virus in. So once they figured out how that worked, they were able to go ahead and create the vaccine pretty rapidly. It takes a long time to get to market, typically because of all the testing that's done, the clinical trials that is done to see how it reacts in the body. But we didn't have that type of time because we were in the middle of a pandemic.
Right.
So do we just want to move forward, or do we want to wait 7 years? Think about how many people are dying every day. And if we waited 7 years, where would we be?
I was just tripping off how you said we lost 11,000 to Ebola and how that triggered, fast action. Where we're at almost 400,000 now, just in the U.S. So that's crazy.
Right. And remember, this is a global pandemic. So think about all the scientists that are working towards this. This was not just a pandemic that impacted the US. This was a pandemic that caused havoc all over the world. So they had every scientist that they could working on this to get a vaccine out fast. So it was a lot of factors that went into the ability for them to get this to market as fast as they did. In addition, giving it emergency use authorization in order to get it out to the public. So those are the factors that led to it getting to market so fast. So it wasn't, like people think, oh, they just created this just out of nothing. No, they had a template. We already had coronavirus before.
Yeah, and I saw where Dr. Fauci said, because everybody's talking about the new South African variant.
Yes.
And
European variant.
And the variant just coming out of, I think, Great Britain, and how more contagious they are. And they don't know if the current vaccines from Pfizer or Moderna, can address them. But what he said was because of that plug and play technology, it's much easier to basically create a booster to those who have been immunized, and we can, be okay. So
for me, I think that what you're saying is obviously common sense, but something that is not necessarily being shared with the information about the vaccine. So they're saying, hey, take the vaccine, but they're not saying, hey, we've got this technology to be better prepared, where like how you compared it to having a microwave. Obviously, technology has advanced from since we had whatever, the Black Plague.
Right.
Or whatever's going on. So now we're in a better position to be able to develop a vaccine to address these issues.
Yeah, our technology is 100 times better than it was when we didn't even have the internet then. I mean, we didn't have none of the technology that we have now. So it's not
Right.
the same. It's not apples to apples. It's not
Well,
apples to apples.
right, and that's fair. But then, so where did the 7-year estimates come from when the virus first came out?
So the 7-year estimates is coming from the time that they have it in the trials, in the clinical trials with the public, trying to see how it responds to humans, because a lot of the testing that's done in the lab is done on animals. It's not done on humans. And so they have to do these clinical trials and try it with humans to see how it's going to respond. We didn't have 7 years, given the state that we were in globally. We couldn't wait 7 years. And America is in the worst state than anybody. So, I mean, we don't have 7 years.
So there's been a history of Black Americans being abused by the medical industry. When you talk about Tuskegee, Henrietta Lacks, this, you name it. There's been a long history of us being abused by the medical industry. And because of that, a lot of people are just very skeptical and very hesitant because of that. And I've seen a lot of people trying to put to bed those fears. They've been putting out a lot of Black medical professionals to talk about the COVID-19 vaccine. But in your opinion, what's going to make people feel more at ease about taking this vaccine?
I think, for one, the medical community just really needs to acknowledge what they did to us and acknowledge the pain that people suffer. This can't just be swept under the rug, and there has to be a mechanism by which we work to rebuild that trust in the industry. So with the Tuskegee, there was a Black woman who was the nurse. So sometimes they will use our own to get in front of us. And that happened then. What's the matter?
Well, that's how we feel now about how all the Black people coming out saying take the vaccine. So what's the
This is
difference?
what I'm getting to. This is what I'm getting to.
Yeah,
But
we talk about that often. We talk about that often on the show. Just having a Black face on something doesn't necessarily.
That doesn't make it. It doesn't make it that it's okay. And that's why I said we have to, one, go through the healing process, and two, we have to become educated. We're a much more educated and savvy group of people now than we were back then. We have access to the same information that they have access to. We can do our own research and we can make our own informed decisions. We used to make decisions based on what somebody said to us, but now we can make decisions based on what we're able to read for ourselves, research for ourselves, and find out for ourselves. And so I would just say, in order to get past this, you just have to become self-educated and self-empowered. You have to be able to speak up for yourself. You have to be able to ask questions. There are IRBs in place now. There's boards that investigate these clinical trials.
Break it down for the audience. What's the IRB?
Internal review boards. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You said you're going way up. There are internal review boards. There are structures in place to help prevent what happened with Tuskegee. And so we just can't do a study anymore. You have to go through a process. You have to make sure that you are protecting people. They have people that come and investigate and make sure you're doing what you say you're going to do, how you say you're going to do it. So there's much tighter reins around research that involves humans today than it was back then. But let's just be clear. If we decide that we never want to participate in a clinical trial in any type of way, none of the medications that are made are really going to help us because they're not made for us. So it's a double-edged sword. None of the treatments that come out are made really for us. We're taking things that are not made for us. They don't have enough participants to make things based on our structure and how we digest and our body process things. So if we decide that we never want to do it, just realize we'll never have the treatments that we need that adequately treat our communities. So what are you going to do?
I was just going to say, I think and Marv knows I'm not running out to get the vaccination anytime soon, but I think the difference between Tuskegee and what's going on now is that clinical trial just was for us. And from what I understand, no one's boxing up a certain box of vaccination saying, okay, these are for Black people, these are for white people, these are for Asian, let me get out of this box. So that's what Black people have to keep in mind. But again,
that fear is there, and that's a heavy hill to climb. But realize this: who did they vaccinate first? ICU nurses, critical care nurses. What's the percentage of Black people that work in critical care? It's not a lot. right?
No,
And
it's
so
not. I thought our health. It was I thought it'd be opposite.
in critical care and ICU, it's not heavily African American. In my hospital, maybe 20%.
Okay. Okay. See, I guess I was thinking more so of
If they're going to vaccinate our healthcare workers first.
yeah. I was
The
thinking more so of the
they
RNs,
give it.
the LVNs. You know, I know there's a lot of Black women, Black men who are nurses. You know, so that's what I was thinking of. But
Yeah, but not that work in critical care, because they vaccinated those that work directly with the COVID patients first.
Okay.
So if they were going to vaccinate the people who have to take care of you, not just you and me, but everybody that comes into the hospital, they're going to vaccinate them first. Do you actually think they're creating something that they want to kill us with, when the people that got to take care of you are getting it first?
Well, one thing that I've been seeing in the Dallas area, I live in Dallas, they showed where the different vaccination sites were set up. And if you look at the makeup of the Metroplex, the southern half of Dallas and the southern suburbs are predominantly Black. But when you looked at the locations where the vaccine was available, it was all in the white neighborhoods. There's very few in the Black neighborhoods. And I presented that to people and I said, there's a reason why they're doing this. There's a reason why you got people flying in from other countries to come to places like Florida so they can get the vaccine. You know what I mean? Because they feel like, hey, I need protection. This is a killer. So, I mean, I presented that to people and I think it's something that people should take into consideration.
Yeah. But I ask our people this. When you go to put an aspirin in your mouth, do you think about what's in that aspirin? Taking that Tylenol.
I do though.
You do.
Yeah, I just don't take medicine really.
Okay.
Yeah, I try not to.
I,
Like I try to take natural remedies if I can.
I'm a pill
A lot
popper.
of people do. When you eat that French fry
Yeah.
from McDonald's.
Oh, I haven't had
Listen.
McDonald's in probably 15 years.
God, that sounds like a death sentence.
Yes.
Yes.
And if
I
you
don't even know how they're even open.
on your counter for 15 years, it's gonna still look the same it did when they got it out the
No
front.
studies.
Right. And
Yeah.
so our people, not you ladies that
Mhm.
are conscious, but when our people think about everything that they put in their mouth, now you questioning where a vaccine come from, but you don't question what you put in your mouth every day.
Yeah, but I think in some of those situations, they don't have a lot of options though. And a lot of our communities, like Black communities, like healthy food options are really limited. And then they're not really cost effective or efficient, I guess, for some of us.
And we do live in food deserts, but we still never question it.
That's true. I mean, because Black people tear some soul food up, and I'm just like, ooh.
Right. But we gonna question this vaccine to death.
Yeah.
We don't question it, but they taking their kids. They got the chickenpox vaccine. They got measles, mumps, rubella. They getting tetanus. They ain't never asked them how long it take you to make that. Where is it coming from? What's the brand? Is it Pfizer? Is it Moderna? Is it? They don't do that. Do you know what the brand was of that shot your kid got?
So
Yeah,
what do you
but
say to the anti-vaxxers then? The people who do have all those questions?
Everybody just have to become informed and make their own decision. A job is not to persuade people. People have to do what they think is best for them. All I can say is just seeing how people are dying or seeing the long-term effects, because what you don't realize is some people get COVID and they never fully recover. They need lung transplants. They have heart problems, respiratory problems, severe fatigue. Their whole life has been changed by having COVID.
Yeah.
So you weigh your risk. Do
You
I
know,
want to risk taking the vaccine or do I want to risk getting COVID?
two things I want to say. Number one, I think you're right, because I had those same retorts and responses to people that would tell me like, don't take that, don't take that. I'm like, look, man, you smoke weed and other stuff, you drink diet soda, and they say that causes cancer, and you worried about this, like, chill out. But because we have such a strong history, a long history of being abused, I feel that's the wrong approach to take, because if you come condescending, that's going to make people dig their heels in more. So I try to just be like, well, listen, I know I'm going to take it and try to lead by example. I hope that other people follow along. So that's just something that my approach to this, because as soon as I'm able to, I will. I'm on the short list to get it because of my health issues. So I'm going to get it. The other thing that you talked about, research, and C and I laugh about this all the time because, we got teenagers and they do their YouTube research.
boy.
The conspiracy
Oh, boy.
theories. So,
Yes, both
you
of
know,
them.
where do you think, when you talk about do your research, where should people go?
Well, I wouldn't go to YouTube necessarily, but I would just look at those reputable institutions. And even though some of those may be contradictory, like when we were going through this and different things was coming out from the CDC, but then they was changing it because it wasn't fitting with what the politicians wanted them to say. So then I was like a healthcare provider saying, are they for the people or against the people? You supposed to be, giving us what we need, not giving what the politicians want you to say. But in the National Institute of Health, the CDC, the American Hospital Association, the American Medical Association, those are some reputable or previously reputable institutions by which we are able to find a lot of information about what's really going on behind the scenes. Because a lot of what's in the mainstream media, like you said, you never even heard, about the technology and the advancement of vaccines in the mainstream media. So people were surprised that they were able to get it to market so fast. But that was because it's not common knowledge of what they had previously available.
So we've been hearing, I kind of talked about it briefly before. We've been hearing about these new variants that have, popped up, and now they're in the United States. And today they announced that Johnson & Johnson announced that their one-shot vaccine is 60% or 65% effective versus the Moderna and the Pfizer, which is 95% effective. So the question that a lot of people have is, if these new variants are coming and there's some doubt on whether the vaccines we have now will address them or be able to fight them off, why should I take the vaccine? And then do you think that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine will still have a place? Because I kind of see, and we put my tinfoil hat on, I see us seeing how the 95% effective, the Pfizer and the Moderna is going to more of the halves, and the Johnson & Johnson's, the ones that are less effective, possibly going to the have-nots. What's your thoughts on that? I'm not asking you to agree with me, but what's your thoughts on all of that?
Well, here's a couple of things. So when you think about your first question in regards to the new variants and will it protect us, we don't know. No one knows yet. No one has that answer yet. But here is my thoughts. At least if you got some vaccine and some kind of protection, it could lessen the
severity
of it on your body.
Yeah.
Right? Because even though we get the vaccine, we could still get coronavirus.
Mm-hmm. See, a lot of people don't know that because, for the longest before this happened, the argument that we had every year was, are you going to get a flu shot? Will you get a flu shot? And I was the only one on the show that said, I get my flu shot every year. And most people are like, well, I got the flu shot and I still got the flu. But it wasn't until I was talking to one of my frat brothers who's a doctor, and he was like, it doesn't keep you from getting the flu. It keeps you from dying from the flu. That's exactly the purpose of it.
And same with the coronavirus vaccine. It doesn't keep you from getting it. It just makes sure that you don't die from it.
Gotcha.
So I would get it. The strains, we're just not sure. They're going to come out with a booster as soon as possible, but no one knows yet. No one knows. It's too soon. We just started getting the vaccine, so how will we know?
So I have a question, Dr. Cuzzo. So for me, a lot of people are concerned about the long-term effects of COVID-19. Why aren't we as concerned about the potential long-term effects of the vaccine?
I think people are concerned about the long-term effects of it because it came to market so soon. But it's still risk right now against, they're measuring their risk. Should I take it? Should I not take it? We don't know the long-term effects, but I just know I don't want COVID. So it's almost like a double-edged sword. You don't take it because of fear, and then you take it because of fear.
You definitely don't want COVID. That's for sure.
So it's it's like the lesser of the two evils, and we face these kind of dilemmas in our own personal lives every day, where we have to flip a coin and decide which way we're gonna go. But I just ask our community to make an informed decision. We suffer the most from coronavirus. When we go into the hospital, we're more likely to die from it, right? We're 58% of the people who got diagnosed with COVID are African American. 52% of them die.
And part of that is because of the injustice that Black people face in the healthcare system. Part of that is because when we express our pain or our symptoms and what we're going through, is discredited a lot. And so you've got to couple the dangers of COVID with the dangers of the racist healthcare system.
Exactly.
So it's compounded, and that makes it more dangerous for us as a people.
Which is even more reason to think about getting a vaccine. Because do you want to be put in a hospital? And if you have an emergency in your community, where are they going to take you? To your community hospital. They're not going to take you to that nice, lavish hospital up where, you know, it take you an hour to drive to, that when you're healthy, you can get to. When it's an emergency, they're going to take you to the hospital right around the corner from your house.
Fortunately, I live right up the street from that nice hospital.
Everybody doesn't have that luxury, you know?
Take me to Progress West.
You know, but that's why it's important for us too to advocate for quality healthcare in our communities. We, you know, we just let stuff happen in our communities and we don't stand up. We should advocate it. We should get the same type of healthcare regardless of where you're located. Your zip code should not dictate the type of healthcare you get. Period.
That's true.
If you live in an affluent health place, you should still get the same. I feel the same about education, the same thing. It doesn't matter where you live. You should be entitled to the same type of healthcare and the same type of education.
But as a healthcare provider, what can we do to make sure that that's a thing? Because like we know that, or we're conditioned to know that pounding the pavement, getting out and protesting, you know, racial injustice, this, that, or the other, but we don't really have that inside track on how we can help navigate the medical field to improve our situation in those arenas. We don't really have an inside track to educational systems to see how we can improve those systems. So you've got the end. Tell us what to do.
But I think part of it starts with getting on some of these healthcare boards. How many of you have tried to get on the boards for hospital systems in your community?
How many of us
As a person
know that's possible? Most of us don't know that's possible.
Hey, that's a thing.
You are a stakeholder. You guys are stakeholders. They have community forums. They have community boards. They have community board members. They have governing council positions. See?
Let me tell you
I
something.
never knew that.
Let me tell you something.
You just learned.
You're talking to highly educated Black people.
I know.
And guess what? And guess what? But guess what? I had no clue that was possible.
See?
So imagine the rest of our community who may or may not be educated formally. And do they know that? And there's also, we got to be real too. There's a lot of us who have somewhat of a fear of the doctors. Like we'll go into the hospital, whatever, and we'll let whoever's got the white coat on just talk to us any type of way. You know what I mean? Because they're the doctor. And because of that, because they're a doctor, they're the MD, they're some sort of person with authority, and we just let it go. And for years, that's happened. We just kind of like, oh, the doctor said it. Because I know a lot of people say, well, my doctor said this, I'm going to go with it. Now, did you get a second opinion? So there's a history.
While you were there, did you ask questions? Did you ask your doctors questions while you were there? It all starts with educate. And I spent 25 years working in community health before I came back into the hospital system. So working in our communities with our people directly, getting them the services that they need. In our community specifically, 80% of our health problem is not clinical.
What do you mean by clinical?
Meaning it's not clinical where it could just be treated with medication.
Okay.
Right? Only 20% of our problems can be treated with clinical care, The rest of it, 80% is about the communities that we live in. It's socioeconomic status, it's access to good food, it's education, it's housing, it's behavioral health issues, it's gun violence. So those all those social determinants of health are really what we need to work on to make our communities more healthy. The clinical aspect is only 20%. It's only 20%. Think about it. Think about it. Most of our people with diabetes, hypertension, all these diseases is because they don't have access to good quality food. They don't have good jobs. They stressed out. They don't have an education that can get them a better job. They have poor housing conditions. All of those are social determinants of health that don't have anything to do per se with the clinical aspect of health, but it has an impact on their health. The biggest impact.
She nailed it with all that right there.
Right. And so that's what we need to work towards too. And you need to work with your hospital system, those communities to say, hey, what are you doing to address the social determinants of health in our community? Because hospital systems are paid on a value-based model, meaning they are paid based on the value of care that they give to the community. If they deliver bad outcomes, they get less pay, which forces them to have to give better quality of care if they want better reimbursement from the insurance companies and from the government for the care that they provide to patients. Did you know that?
No,
See?
No,
no.
you're blowing my mind today.
Well,
Yes.
see, I think that's the important. That's why it's important that we have people like you on, because we don't know. You know,
Yeah.
oftentimes we talk about things that affect our community, and we talk about how more politically savvy, how just more wiser we are as a community. Whereas things that were done to us, you know, how they got over on us, and politically, medically, you name it, was because our people did not know better. And now that we're more, you know, educated and more wiser, we're able to say, okay, now you won't pull that on me again. So now that you're saying what you're saying, we need to spread that message. And I hope everybody listens to the show, because just like you blew our mind, you're going to blow a lot of other people's minds. So now we know, like, okay, how do we put this into effect? How do we don't just talk about it? How do we walk it and make sure that it happens? So, and I hope people that watch this show will become inspired and say, okay, well, you know what? You know, maybe I'll go to the hospital board. Let me look that up, because I wouldn't even know where to look. You could go to the website and try to find out, but mostly I didn't even know they had board meetings for the hospital.
My hospital system particularly has metrics that charge our executives with hiring more people of color, so that our health system is more diverse. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is one of our metrics that we have to meet every year for our organization. And that says that they have some skin in the game to make sure that the people that we care for see people that look like them. They connect with people that look like them. They connect with people that understand them, that they feel like they could really talk to, that you could build trust and relationships with. You can't take care of somebody if they don't trust you.
Right.
You can't provide good quality care if they don't trust you. So if I'm in this Black neighborhood and everybody I see is white, how am I trust?
Right.
How am I trust? So I applaud, my institution for seeing that and really putting our skin in the game and say, we're not just gonna, talk about it, we're gonna be about it. And then they hired a Black president, my boss, and then a Black VP, which is me.
Okay, show out. All right.
Okay, well, yeah.
They got some, but we didn't get this because we're not prepared for it. We're prepared for it, right? We're prepared for the challenge, and we're prepared to do what it takes to get our community what they deserve to have. And that's what we're working towards every day. So doing things like this, getting out in the community, talking about things, blowing your mind, things that you never knew, didn't know that you had a voice or even access to have a voice. You have a voice.
So before we go, what advice would you give to the Black community in concerns of the vaccine and staying safe from COVID-19?
I would just say this: we are dying at a rapid rate. No cavalry is coming to rescue our community from COVID. Consider, how do you plan to help your community survive COVID? If you don't get the vaccine, what's your plan? Because we have to take care of one another. And if we're not doing it, who else is going to do it? What's your options? What's our options? What's our plan B? Everybody's saying why they don't want to take the vaccine, but they're not saying how we're going to protect our community. Come up with a plan B, because we need it. We're dying in the masses. So if you don't want to take the vaccine, I mean, it's your choice. But what's the plan B?
You're right, because I say this all the time. We all we got. It's no longer me trying to convince them. I'm going to ask them, okay, what's the plan B? What are you going to do?
Because it's not just about you.
Yeah.
Right? I didn't take the vaccine just for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just for me.
Yeah.
So I mean, we just have to have a plan. We got the rally cry against it, but nobody is saying what the plan is if they're not gonna take it. How you gonna stop all these people from dying? All these kids that's losing mothers and fathers and now becoming wards of the state because there's nobody to take care of them. What's the plan B? What is it?
Yeah. Well, Dr. Odom, thank you so much for coming on the show. You were wonderful. Very rarely do we have a guest come on that really just kind of stumps the crew. You know, we've had real good guests. You know,
That's my cousin. You didn't know?
we had some good guests to come on the show for sure. But you know, you definitely educated us, and I really hope that everybody listens and shares this show so that we can spread the knowledge. Because, like you said, it's important. I read an article where they talked about Black men my age in their 40s. Our generation, we're being wiped out. COVID. Black men my age are being wiped out from COVID. Like our generation might be lost if we don't address it soon. And
what's the plan B? If the community don't want to take it, community, what should we do? How do we move forward? Tell me. I'm listening.
Sign me up. Sign me up. As soon as because I'm on the waiting list of my hospital, they're gonna send me the text, and I'm gonna be on the first thing smoking to get it as soon as they shoot me the notification. But anyway, thank you again for coming on the show. Everybody, no problem. Everybody, make sure that you share the show. Make sure you follow us on social media, on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at manlistenshow. Make sure you go to our YouTube channel, click the subscribe button, and make sure you give us a thumbs up and leave a comment about the Blackest radio show on the internet. We'll holler at you next time. Peace.
Peace.